What's the quickest way to trust, and how do you instill self-trust?
First, you have to get to know yourself to trust yourself. There needs to be a level of safety first, and curiosity about the self, about the body, about what exists within, and then an experimentation. It's a lot of the time we don't trust because we want to control. You might be wondering, why does your life play out in certain patterns? Why am I always getting into a relationship with that type of guy? Why do I always sabotage opportunities? Even though I might think my childhood was great, everything was fine, I might find that my adult life is playing out in certain ways that are not helping me. It requires awareness and it requires curiosity.
Yeah.
And people, when they don't have that awareness, if they're not curious enough about themselves, they will replay the patterns and they'll call it a life. We've normalized physical health. We're still not talking about mental health as something that is a normal part of life. I can be really successful and I can still be struggling. We need to normalize people asking for help.
Welcome back to Conversations That Count. In this episode, we're diving into what trauma really means beyond the big, obvious moments. We explore the small T traumas that come from unmet needs and how those experiences quietly shape the patterns we repeat as adults. I'm joined by psychologist and founder of Ascendant Retreat, Zara, and together we unpack how safety, self-trust, and nervous system awareness helps you finally break free of old cycles. If you've ever wondered why you keep reacting the same way or why healing sometimes feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, this episode is for you.
For a lot of high achievers and entrepreneurs, and where our head has been our biggest tool, it's like it's nice to actually switch it off for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people come to, therapy thinking therapy is just cognitively based, or that they need to take some actions back at, that cognitive behavioral approach. So it's nice to challenge them through energetics, through breath work, through all these modalities that I probably would have questioned many times before. Like 2 years ago, before I came to Bella, I would have been like,
Yeah.
what is that? Like energetics?
Yeah.
And I would have poo-pooed it. But now I'm just like, I see time and time again what it does for my clients, and it's incredible the transitions that happen from the beginning to end of a program.
Yeah.
So I'm a believer, and I don't necessarily need science to fully back it, because this hasn't caught up yet.
Well, like with breathwork especially, like it's definitely...
Breathwork is science-backed.
Yeah, it's science-based.
Energetics, not so much.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's all a belief, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how much do you trust yourself? How much do you lean into your intuition as well?
Sure.
And how much, everything is a felt experience, which is energetics, right? You don't have to say anything until you feel someone or you feel something. So it's just like, rather than making sense of it, it's just trusting at the same time. And I feel like there's definitely more exposure to it as well. And there's definitely, as you said, more modalities coming online now as well, that actually complements traditional therapy types as well.
Yeah. And I like the idea of trust, yet we're faced with a lot of rigid clients who come to us, and trusting is not necessarily part of the process. A plan is.
Yeah.
And, a methodical step-by-step approach, so that can feel like, a trustful.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know who's going to catch me, and I don't know you guys. I've just met you. So it's, the trust becomes the process to get you there, but it's like, we got to get you to trust first.
And how do you find that people, what's the quickest way to trust, and how do you instill self-trust as well?
Yeah. Self-trust is, I find it's a stepped approach. First, you have to get to know yourself to trust yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're a bit of a foreigner to your body, to your mind, you might check out, you might numb, you might avoid, you might have experiences internally that more often than not, you want to escape.
Yeah.
How can you trust yourself when your body hasn't been safe? So I think there needs to be a level of safety first, and curiosity about the self, about the body, about what exists within, and then an experimentation. It's a lot of the time we don't trust because we want to control, and we feel that through control we can get an outcome, and that doesn't happen that way. It's almost like sometimes I have to embrace the incredible amount of unknown. You and I went to Stephen Bartlett, and we heard him talk about the uncertainty, the level of uncertainty that you need to sit with in order to be able to achieve greatness. And for a lot of people, they wait for a confirmation in order then to trust themselves. They need 80% certainty, 90%, 95%, when actually I think it was Barack Obama who was saying that sometimes all he needed was 50%.
Yeah.
And then he would just trust himself and dive.
Yeah.
But that level of character development, self-knowledge and self-leadership, that takes time. And then the trust is a byproduct of that.
Yeah. And I also like the safety piece is such a big one as well, right? And I believe for women as well, definitely the women that I've worked with in the past and probably me included, is around the safety within yourself rather than outsourcing that to other people as well and looking for, I don't want kind of like external validation as well, and outsourcing the self-trust, outsourcing the safety, and it's bringing it back to yourself as well, where I feel like that isn't necessarily taught like anywhere in life, and it's not until you kind of go down to like your own self-discovery journey or challenge in life, or you're more open to understanding yourself on a deeper level, that you realize that safety is so important. And the self-trust as well.
Yeah, and establishing safety within the body.
Yeah.
Kind of like we figure out a way to live in our heads, and we're taught in our society, especially Western culture, we're taught to have safety in being in our head, in planning and thinking, in organizing. But the safety actually exists within the body. And it's in being able to connect head to body with our clients that finally true safety is established. And you're right, we outsource safety to maybe alcohol, drugs, other people, validation. And at some point the safety starts here, but yes, we also have to seek it outside in connection, in community. So we're not existing in a silo, but we also need to start with the self first, then extend out into the community. If that inner work is not done, we then overutilize and over-rely on those external things.
Yeah. What's the best way to start to build that safety within yourself? Like, what are some of the things that you talk through your clients, or do you go, okay, this is the best way to do that as well?
Yeah.
What's the recognition?
I feel like safety trumps everything.
Yeah.
If your client is not feeling safe with you, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
If your client's not feeling safe within their body, it doesn't work. They don't feel safe in the goals and the vision that they have for their life, in their relationships. So when safety's gone, everything else goes out the window as well. So establishing that safety is core. I find that in the therapeutic relationship between client and clinician, you're having to build safety from the moment they reach out to you, from that email that they send to you, not even from the first session. And that might come in through unconditional positive regard for them. It might come in through validation and support and being able to hear them in a way that they've never been heard before. In doing so, that emotional attunement between client and clinician is almost like it mirrors the emotional attunement between parent and child. And how does a child form safety? They need a parent. They need a really caring, attuned, connected parent who's available, or as we call it, good enough parenting. They don't need to be perfect, but good enough. And through that ongoing interaction, the child's physiology starts to regulate with the parent's physiology. And ultimately what we do in therapy is the same thing. We regulate the client's physiology with ours. And over time that establishes safety. A client can walk in, they're fully dysregulated, they've had a fight with someone or they've had a tough week. Within minutes their physiology goes down because you're able to support them through that. With time, that builds a neural pathway for safety. That builds a neural pathway for, I can have safe connections because I just had one with my therapist.
Yeah.
And so outside world, I can now mimic the template that I have with my therapist in other relationships and build safety there. But also, within the therapeutic process, we're also teaching skills and tools and strategies for access to body with safety, for access to the past with safety. And we have to travel a little bit back there where the safety was broken, where it wasn't established maybe altogether, and we rebuild. And through that foundation, the client can kind of hop off and move to the future and launch that way. So it's a big process, and it's multi-stepped and has many layers to it, but it is absolutely crucial.
Yeah. How do you, like, you mentioned co-regulation there, which I feel like is such a beautiful thing, and especially when it comes to, those closest to you, you want to be able to have the safety that you can co-regulate together. How do you, as a practitioner, then make sure that you're regulated yourself so then you can actually be a co-regulator for someone else?
Excellent question. This is the dilemma that, most of us therapists, we come to become therapists because we've gone through some stuff.
Yeah.
We've had maybe a tough childhood. I know I have. And my biggest desire, as long as I can remember, is I want to help people. As cliche as that sounds, I deeply wanted to help people. And I think what I didn't realize was that I deeply needed help myself. And I just wanted people to feel all the things that I didn't feel when I was a kid. And in searching for this vision and goal to help others, I realized how much help I needed. And so I sought that out. I had been in therapy on and off for 12 years, maybe a bit more as well. And I've tried all the different modalities, and, I've experimented. I've pushed myself to see female therapists and male therapists, and to challenge myself in ways to, rebuild from the childhood that wasn't necessarily conducive to the life that I wanted. In doing so, I can show up with a nervous system that is safe for my clients. It's really detrimental to the client's health when we're not taking care of ourselves. I've heard of therapists who drink excessively. I mean, I have been one many years ago in my early career. I was someone who was still relying on alcohol, relying on drugs, relying on, escapism in order to cope. But I deeply wanted to help, and there was this dissonance between, but you're a psychologist and you're needing to show up for your clients, but you're doing all the coping mechanisms that you're, trying to support your clients with. And this contradiction wasn't sitting well inside, of course, but it was all I knew. So I like to think that my clients have taught me more about me and what I need to do for myself, and they've helped me, more than I've helped them. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because you can't have that dissonance. You can't be a hypocrite for too long.
Yeah.
It starts to grate. It starts to eat away at you. And so through that process, I've been able to slowly change and really prioritize my own self-care, my own healing, so I can show up as a good enough healer.
Yeah. You hit so many great and valid points just now. Like, you need to be an embodiment of what you teach, right? Because it's going to be felt otherwise. And how can you teach something if you're not an embodiment of it? Like, anyone can learn information, but it's like, actually, how do you integrate that into your own life so then people can see that within you as well? Otherwise, it will come out at some stage in your life, right?
Always does.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're always going to be your first client. And I've learned that as well. Like, when I went down my journey of like learning different modalities, I was purely doing it for me. I didn't want to be a coach. I was very happy in my corporate career. I just wanted to be a better person and have internal happiness. Like, that's all I wanted. And then when I started doing this work on myself and seeing how much it helped me and how much I grew as a person, I was like, every single person in the world should have access to this information before they go through a life challenge or they hit rock bottom or something along those lines. And they're skills, life skills that we're not taught in school, or, our parents, and depending, I guess, on how self-aware and conscious our surroundings are and our environments are, whether they pass that on to you. But otherwise, it's just, you're just going through the motions, aren't you? It's just like that kind of
floating through life.
Literally.
Yeah, with zero guidance and really no awareness around what to do.
Yeah.
And it's, you're right, we're not guaranteed the skills that we need. We're not guaranteed the skills at home. We're not guaranteed the skills at school or in our upbringing. Like, it is, it's a bit of if you do fare well in childhood, that's really great. Like, that gives you a bit of a step ahead. But if you don't, it doesn't mean that you've lost. It doesn't mean that you miss out. At every point, you have a choice to make in that moment around your own journey, around whether you're going to continue to do the same thing or you're going to step up and do something differently about it. And the the childhood that you missed out on can be made up for with post-traumatic growth, for example.
Yep.
So a lot of us grow up with a lot of trauma in our childhoods, and it can make us feel a bit resentful of those who just kind of move freely in the world. You know, they've had a great family or things have worked out really well for them. And we can live in this sort of resentment of that, a resentment of the people that hurt us, and that gets us nowhere. But we have a choice as adults to be able to go, no, not anymore. That's enough.
Yeah.
I need to become, as you said, my first client, and I need to do something about this. And the PTG, the post-traumatic growth that comes out of that, is incredible. It's like a superpower that other people don't get. So yeah, you may have missed out on that, but guess what you get out of this, which is really incredible.
And then you've got the range, right? Of like the full range of experience of life. And we'll touch on that in a moment. But, you know, sometimes when you are at the darkest point of your life or you've gone through rock bottom, you know what that feels like. And then that means if you then look at it from a pendulum swing, like where you're going to experience life on the other end as well. And so like that post-traumatic growth, as you just mentioned, like, you get to experience so much high from it as well, right? Because you get to experience it on such a different level. So I feel like that's beautiful in itself, that you get to then experience life within that range.
Such a spectrum,
yeah,
right?
Literally.
You get to know the depths of pain and suffering and the highs of recovery and spirituality and growth mindset and all the beautiful things that come with PTG. And I think that is a gift, but it is one that's worked for. It's one that demands a level of pain. And it's difficult. It's difficult for people who've suffered so much to be told yet again, you've got to go through some more pain. If you want the ticket of entry to PTG, there's a little bit more pain to pay. Yeah. And that's really tough.
Do you feel like people have to go through that pain, or do they have to have a drive towards pleasure more so? Do you think you can have, do you need one before the other, or can you go towards pleasure before pain?
I feel like pleasure requires a certain level of safety. So when we're in our pleasure mindset, I need to have safety. So let's look at a child. When a child is in an environment that feels unfamiliar or unsafe, they look a bit suspicious, they're unsure, where's mum? They don't play. You can put toys in front of them, they might even hesitate. And so they're not seeking pleasure, and safety actually needs to be present. So for me personally, pleasure requires safety. And when I have trauma in my body stored, I don't yet have safety. So establishing of that safety first creates a yearning for pleasure, or the byproduct becomes pleasure. But in order to create safety, there's a level of pain that needs to be, I guess, as I said, a payment of pain in some way. But existing in trauma is painful, but it's suffering. It's pain without meaning.
Yeah.
But the pain of recovery and healing and doing all the modalities, that is pain with meaning, which then can lead to a life of pleasure if you choose so.
How would you describe trauma? And do you believe we all have some form of trauma? Like you mentioned before about like childhood, some people have a great childhood. Do you still believe that they have some level of trauma throughout some stage of their life?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we get a lot of clients who go, but my childhood is fine. And then you dig a little bit deeper with the right questions and you go, this was missing. So the easiest way to explain it is, I want you to think of trauma as capital letter T or small letter t. Capital letter T is the overt stuff. It's the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, being exposed to something horrific like an accident, natural disasters, things like that. Capital letter T trauma. And then you've got small letter t trauma, which is generally what we tend to find mostly in childhood, let's say. A child's needs are very unique. They don't end when we become an adult. They're needs that we have all throughout our life, but they're especially important in childhood. We call them emotional needs. Emotional needs range from attachment, so I need to feel connected, loved, wanted, seen, safe, secure. And then you've got needs for spontaneity and play. Again, these are needs all throughout life. Then you've got needs for expression, self-expression, creativity, and so on. Need for boundaries and limits, and needs for autonomy and independence. These needs don't end, they are there, but in childhood they are especially important. And as a child, you're relying on your parents more often than not, your primary caregivers, to provide that need for you. When those needs are not met consistently, predictably, or reliably, that's when small letter T traumas start to happen. I miss out on consistent love because mum comes home and she's really drunk, and then she starts watching TV, and I'm trying to show her my homework. She's not really listening to me. She's disconnected. I missed out on connection because dad traveled a lot. I would see him maybe just a few months of the year. So these are just some examples of how that can happen. It's more of neglecting of needs as opposed to overtly abusing someone, if that makes sense. But they live in the body in the same way. The body doesn't discriminate. It doesn't go, that one is going to feel worse and this one's going to feel okay. Yeah. To a child, not getting attention, not being seen, not being heard is soul death. It's that awful. If my parents cannot see me, I cannot survive because I'm only a child. So we end up forming the same patterns of trauma within the body.
When you have little t trauma, I love how you describe that, but if you have little t trauma and you have a great upbringing, how does that then show up for you in life as an adult? So someone that's in their 20s, 30s, 40s or older, how does that unconsciously show up and play out then in relationships or potentially generational, you're passing that down to your children as well. So can you talk us through that?
So many ways that it can show up, because depending on the need that was unmet, it can create certain hungers within us, and certain deprivations in some way. And it can show up for us in a variety of ways. So I'll talk you through some examples. More often than not, if I form an emotional deprivation, I didn't get enough attention, love, connection, hugs, I love yous from my caregivers, I might feel quite deprived. And then I might act in three ways. I might fight, so I'll overcompensate, and I'll demand attention and I'll want it and I'll argue with my partners. Or I might flight, I'll just avoid all relationships and go, you know what, relationships are too much trouble. It doesn't matter, I'll do my own thing, I'll focus on work. Or I might just go, you know what, I'm unlovable. I'm never going to get the things that I want, freeze. So fight, flight, freeze tend to be the ways we then cope with those patterns that happen to us. So in schema therapy, we talk about patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving, and sensing. And these patterns form in early childhood when our emotional needs weren't met, when those small letter T traumas happen. We've identified in psychology about 18 to 19 of them, and there's all these varieties. Each one of us has at least a couple. You know, if we're well adjusted, you know, if we have a lot of trauma, we have anywhere between 7 to 10 sometimes. So it's not uncommon that we end up with these maladaptive, unhelpful patterns. Some of those patterns are abandonment, emotional deprivation, defectiveness, feeling like there's something wrong with me, social alienation, I'm different to everyone, and you know I'm an alien. There's also others like unrelenting standards. I have to work extra hard and be extra good, or I have to self-sacrifice. There's 18 of those, and all of them show up in some way or another for a lot of us. So if you grow up with an abandonment wound, how does that show up? You might fight against it. You might start to argue with your partner a lot. Don't leave me. You can't leave, or you can't leave the house. I might stand at the door. You can't leave leave the relationship when they're just about to go out. Or I might flight again. I might not even get into a relationship, or I might avoid, or I might surrender and say, you know what, everyone leaves me anyway, so why should I try? So it's so varied. You know, we can go through all 19 schemas in schema therapy, and you'll see a pattern of overcompensation, of avoidance or surrender, fight, flight, freeze.
What do you think, how do you recognize trauma and bring it into your conscious awareness. So I'm talking little t trauma because like I feel like if you've gone through capital T trauma, it's quite obvious, right? Where little t trauma, it's the connection of, oh, that did happen, or how I'm showing up as an adult was actually played out in my childhood and I'm just carrying it right through now. So I feel like little t trauma needs to be spoken about more so and bring it into people's awareness, because I feel like that until you heal that and you do the inner work, it's going to show up in life and it's going to have that ripple effect into business, career, relationships, whatever it is that you do, right? So how do you recognize if you do have that level of trauma within your body, and what do you find is the best way to bring it to the surface for you then to be able to heal through it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to have someone by your side to help you with the process, step one. But you might also be kind of wondering, why does your life play out in certain patterns? Why am I always getting into a relationship with that type of guy? Why do I always sabotage really cool opportunities that come my way? Why do I tend to isolate myself and maybe say no all the time, and then I wonder why I'm so lonely? So you might be looking at your life and going, it just keeps repeating in a certain way. Even though I might think my childhood was great, everything was fine, I might find that my adult life is playing out in certain ways that are not helping me. And so I might have a certain level of values that I love, like courage and, helping people and wisdom and all sorts of beautiful things. But then my life seems to be really in the opposite way to what I value. That is also another clue. And so you might then get really curious and go, I'm going to see a psychologist or a coach or some form of therapist, and I really want to understand what's going on. It requires awareness and it requires curiosity.
Yeah.
And people, when they don't have that awareness, if they're not curious enough about themselves, they will replay the patterns and they'll call it a life.
Yeah.
And that is really sad, because it's quite tragic actually, because literally I have met people, and I'm grateful for that, met people in their 60s who've finally woken up and had the awareness, and they're the bravest, because a lot of people at 60 will be like, well, it's over. But they've woken up, they've said, I feel the awareness and I need help now.
Yeah.
So it's never ever too late, but the sooner you act on it, the more you can gain in terms of freedom.
Yeah.
So how do they gain awareness, let's say within that therapeutic process? We talk. We talk about their childhood. We go back a little bit. We step back into the stories of the past. We think about what's happening in the present moment. And then we time travel to the future. What do you want it to look like? And with this roadmap of understanding the past and really acknowledging it, really understanding the present and how it's showing up in all sorts of strange ways in your present moment, and where you want to go, we can create a bit of a plan forward.
How did you choose the path of this work? As you mentioned before, you kind of got into it because of your upbringing as well. What was the moment for you that you recognized something needs to change, and now I take full responsibility for my life and the trajectory that I'm going in?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those questions that requires a bit of vulnerability. And the woman that sits in front of you and the woman that was me 15 years ago are worlds apart. And it's not one is better than the other. It's one had a lot less awareness and a lot more suffering and pain and a lot less equipped. And so I have so much compassion for that version of myself that had no idea and was kind of left under-resourced and unaware. But I'm also so proud of her, because if it wasn't for that decision that she made that one day, I wouldn't be here. And, unfortunately, when we're hurt, when we're traumatized, what we don't realize is we leave a lot of collateral damage behind. We leave a trail of pain and suffering for others too. And I remember leaving my family home where there was a lot of domestic violence. I grew up in a Middle Eastern family, Muslim, and we came to Australia when I was 10. So I had already lived in Iran, which was highly oppressive of women. I remember wearing the scarf from the age of about 5 when our kindergarten teacher came in and said, we're big girls now. And I remember being excited about it, not realizing that that one day would be a symbolism of oppression for me. So many years on in Australia, I'm trying to blend in a culture that I'm really embracing and loving, whilst at home I'm trying to belong in a family that's rejecting me for the woman that I'm becoming. And this sort of double life of Australian, you know, I am Australian, and, you know, Middle Eastern woman was just really hard to consolidate, and it was causing a lot of suffering. And not to mention, you know, the people that are supposed to love you and keep you safe, they don't have the tools to do that. And again, they're not bad people. They were very traumatized themselves, refugees, struggled through life. They did the best that they could with what they had. I genuinely believe that, but it was also quite horrific. So I have to hold these two truths at the same time. They did the best that they could, and it was awful. And I think that's what we have to also show our clients, that it's okay to acknowledge that your parents weren't bad. You're not awful. You're not pointing the finger at them and getting angry at them for no reason. They did their best, but also it hurt you. And when I finally left home and, you know, met, you know, my beautiful ex-husband, who's one of the most incredible humans, he was unfortunately left with the responsibility of being my father, my brother, my psychologist, my everything, because I didn't know how else to function. And at the time I was going through uni, everybody thought I was high functioning. Everybody outside of my relationship thought everything was going really well. Internally, I was completely falling apart. I was self-harming, I was incredibly suicidal. Some days I would just drive to the hospital and go, I need to check myself in. I would sit there for an hour and then go, okay, no, I'm fine. And then I would drive back, and then I would keep soldiering on. And one day I couldn't. And I did end up at a hospital, waking up after having attempted suicide. And luckily, the attempt failed. And I woke up feeling like, okay, I really need help. I really need something. And that's when I saw the psychiatrist, and he sat me down and told me about complex PTSD. And I really felt seen and heard. I felt understood. And it was nice to have a label. You know, a lot of people feel like, oh, a label. For me, it was like, oh, finally, this can be explained in a way, and then there's a way forward for treatment. But the way forward for treatment was long. And it was difficult. I ended up in a beautiful group program called DBT, Dialectical Behaviour Therapy. And I sat around once a week with these incredible women around me. All of us have gone through some heavy stuff, and we supported each other week in, week out for 18 months. My individual therapist as well, and rebuilt all the skills I never learnt. I was learning every week and applying. But it has been a long, long path. That moment, though, changed everything.
I got goosebumps, and like I really appreciate you being so open and sharing your story, because I know that how much that would help other people as well, because you have gone through like everything that we were just talking about, to then be able to help people as well and show that there is a different way to life, and that life can be really beautiful and what we created as well. So I really appreciate you being so open with sharing that.
Thank you.
As well.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned about your family, your environment plays such a big part in who you are, and you normalize to your environment. How did you get the courage to then step away and say, I'm now in this for me, I need to take care of me, and then go on your own path as well?
It was the hardest thing, truly. I was always the black sheep in the family. I was always different. I remember my brother joking that I was left at the doorstep, you know, those
Brothers.
I have brother jokes, right? It was so silly. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister, so we're a big family. And at one point I was like, you know what, that would make a logical sense if I was, because I was so different and I could feel that difference. And I questioned everything, and I had a lot of questions, and I was highly sensitive. I felt everything. So I did grow up in an environment where I felt quite like a burden.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad had, 5 other kids and a really dysregulated nervous system and traumas of their own, and they were fully checked out. So they weren't able to meet me where I needed to be met. And I think how old was I? 13, 14, I started to question religion. And that was a big no-no in our household because my dad is a sheikh, which is the priest equivalent in Islam. So for me to be the daughter of a sheikh and to question religion was absolutely outrageous. But I had all these questions. I couldn't believe in a God when, my life and my childhood was just riddled with pain and suffering and abuse. And I was like, if there's a God, why would it be like this? And then I would look outside of me. It wasn't just about me. And I would see the suffering back at home. And I'm like, well, can that be real? But that made me a little bit hard to deal with at home. My other siblings found a way to survive because we all survive differently. They found it through being parentified and placating and people-pleasing. And that was their survival, and I'm proud of them for doing what they had to do to survive. For me, survival meant fighting back and then flighting at some point. And I lived a double life for so long. I would have a life outside of home. And I remember being at school kind of all the kids are happy to go back home, and I'm sitting there going, I have to go back home. And I don't want to go back home. And it was a lot. And getting a bit emotional. Yeah, just for her. Yeah. But she got up and she went home and she made a life out of it as much as possible. And at some point, she found the strength and the resources and she got out of there. And I'm proud of her.
You should be so proud of yourself
Thank
for
you.
doing that and creating change. And now you get to help people as well, right? Which is such a beautiful gift of being of service for other people as well. So you should be incredibly proud of yourself, and as you said, for her. Like, everything, I believe everything that we do in life, it's for our younger version of ourselves, right?
100%. Like, these are tears of joy and pride and compassion. Yeah, because that was super brave and I had no idea what I was doing. And I had to make big decisions as a little girl. And I'm proud of her because she paved the way for how I show up in life now. And I show up with courage and I ask for what I want. And I demand the most from life, which is something that I didn't have as a kid. And I think I just do it. I keep doing it for her. Yeah. And I'm proud of me now for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And you should be. How have you now been a model for your family?
It's difficult. I've been estranged from my family for 14 years now. And, you don't choose the family that you're born into. But these are the cards that you're dealt. Yeah. And sometimes the safest way to love them is to love them from a distance. And, we talk about boundaries, but, there's lots of different boundaries you can set, and you do it and you try and you try. And then at some point, the safest way to love them is to have the boundary of no longer being in contact. And that is hard because I know that's a shared story between myself and many of my clients that they probably don't know about me. And many people out there who've had trauma at the hands of their family. Because who doesn't want a family? Who doesn't want to, go to their family for various events and celebrations and birthdays? Who doesn't want to have a mother to call on Mother's Day? Yeah. So it's in those little moments that it hurts still a little bit. Yeah. Not for, I think for a little bit for what I missed out on, but what I continue sometimes to still miss out on. But I've made up for that with incredible, what I call a chosen family. Yeah. My sisters and my beautiful brothers and people who sometimes, fill that role. Yeah. Because it's not a gap now. It's filled by all these incredible people that I have around me, and I'm so grateful for that.
The work that you do now as well, it's so powerful, and you work with high performers, and you have a retreat center. Is that how you would describe Ascendant?
I would describe Ascendant as a mental health and addiction recovery center. Yeah. I feel like I've gone away from the word retreat and I've gone into recovery and mental health because I really wanted it to be a space for healing, grounded in clinical and scientific research, but also blended with soul-based holistic care. Ascendant has been born from my story, I think. I'd like to think, at least. All the things that I've tried over the last 12 years for recovery and working through my stuff, and the things that I continue to do, I've blended into a method that I believe really treats my clients as a full person, not in parts. Yeah. And imagine coming to a space for 21 to 28 days and you're greeted by a beautiful team of clinicians. All of them have lived experience. Not a single one in my team doesn't have lived experience. And it wasn't because I planned it that way. It's because we've attracted each other. And all of them get it. Yep. And I think that's really powerful. In addition to their qualifications and many years of experience, they're people who've lived through it as well. Yeah. And I think there's a power to that you can be seen in that way, that we're not here an authority on your life and know what's best for you. No, we're walking by your side. We've journeyed through this. We may be even continuing to journey through this, and we're here to support, guide, and mentor. And you come into this beautiful villa. I love all things luxury.
I hear you.
I do. So I'm like, it's good. I've been in hospitals. I've been hospitalized in the past, and I never want a client to come into fluorescent lighting and to feel like they're in a setting that is unsafe. For a lot of us, these institutions are unsafe. Or some places like hospitals hold a lot of painful memories for a lot of us. I want people to walk into Ascendant and go, wow, this feels like home. I want them to have a home away from home. And in that beautiful space that you call home for that period of time, your clinicians come in on a scheduled basis and they meet with you in different ways. Or you go out into the community and interact in different classes, programs, gym activities. But the backbone of the program is the psychology, it's the medical, and it's the somatic work. Somatic and energetic work. Those are the things that I find are essential for progress to be made. Then you've got the naturopathy, the nutrition, the movement. They create the foundation, because if I've got a strong body that is healthy, I've got organs that are functioning really well, I'm sleeping, my nutrition is nourishing my soul, then I'm available to do the psychological work, the energetic work, the somatic work, and the medical work that we have to go through within that program. So we take the old school rehab, medical treatment of mental health, and we make it more client-centered. We make it gentle. We make it kind. We give people dignity in that you can receive treatment and still be treated as a beautiful human, not just a Medicare number if you're in Australia. So as the client transitions week after week through the program, you see the change not only in the way they're speaking and interacting with the team and the world around them, but in the way they look as well.
Physiology of it all, right?
100%. And I get to experience a program that I've never experienced in my life before. And I get to see clients move through the transition in a model that, unfortunately, places like Australia and the UK and the US are not embracing. Mental health requires a trauma-informed, intensive approach when clients are at that level of pain and suffering. and they need holistic care, and they need a team that talks to each other all the time, not working in silos.
Yeah. And everyone's got their own different agendas, right? Like, you know, having a whole team, as you said, of different experts coming together for you, a bespoke program for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that's really special in itself. Why 21 to 28 days?
Because it takes time for change to happen in the brain. You know,
Yep.
more and more the research shows it's even longer for rewiring to happen. So our programs are 21 to 28 days on average, and then we do 8 to 12 weeks of aftercare, depending on the package, which means we want to be with you until your brain really rewires,
Yeah.
until you've adopted these habits that you've picked up from all of these incredible clinicians and Bali in itself, and you've made a life out of it. Because I'm not here to do a, let's say, a retreat style where you have a beautiful experience, but then you go back into life.
Yeah.
And nothing has really changed. Our program demands that longer duration because we want you to have the outcomes that are going to actually change your life. Because I can sell a 1 week package, but what I won't be doing is actually supporting you to have long-term life changes. Yeah. I could do a 21-day program, but I can not do aftercare, and then you might fall into old patterns. So the way I've designed it is 21 to 28 days plus all of that aftercare where we check in with you every week, because I want you to feel what it's like to build a life out of the model you experienced.
The people that come into your world and they come into these spaces, I know that you work with a lot of high-performing people. Who do you find like actually goes, do you know what, I need to create some really long-lasting change in my life, I need to come into this program? Like, are they particular levels of success, wealth, or are they people that are just wanting a different way than, as you said, like traditional therapy in, as you said, Australia, UK, or the US?
It's a combination.
Yeah.
And I think you've really identified the spectrum quite well. We've just got an athlete with us at the moment, very professional, high level, and he's come in for neuro optimization, and he wraps up with us today after almost 28 days, which is super exciting. And working with him was such a delight, because, you know, working with someone at that level of performance and high achievement, we're tweaking things for optimization as opposed to really dealing with root level stuff. Although there was still some stuff there to be worked on too. There always is to some degree.
Always.
And then we've got the executives, the corporates, the people who I think have been struggling for a long, long time, but they've just gone, I'm okay. The high functioning alcoholics, the high functioning people with anxiety, depression, and so on. And maybe they've rode the wave of the small letter T trauma for a long time, but it's all coming to a head now because they're drinking too much, they're about to lose their relationship, job, and so on. And more often than not, they'll come to me and they're like, my wife's about to leave me. I need to do this.
Yeah.
It's crisis-based a lot of the time. I find that also pattern with genders. I'm just going to speak to men and women at this stage. Men tend to come to me in crisis. Women come to me having planned. And it's wonderful that women do that. I hope the same for our beautiful men, because it's really difficult being at complete breaking point and reaching for help.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is unfortunately society. We've not created a safe place for our men to reach for help sooner. But that's a whole topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we get the executives, the corporates, the athletes, and then we've got, the general population, the person who has, access to, they've released their super early and they're like, I can do this program now because, I may not have the wealth to access this, but I will literally tap into my pension to get this because I know this is exactly what I need. I've got a client who's just about to start who literally said that. And to tap into your super it's a big decision to make, but it's also like, it's either that or my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have I'm not going to be 70, 65 and releasing my super if I don't do this now. I won't be around. And that was the reality of what she was facing. Or we've got people who fund it themselves, and seek help. People who've been cycling through the same problems over and over again and they go, okay, I'm done. People who've been to multiple rehabs and they'll come to us and they'll say, I don't want to go to those rehabs again. I've heard your model's different. How can you help me?
Yeah.
So much variety. And I guess that's what makes the job so interesting.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah. You created a method, is it 721 method?
Yeah, the Ascendant 721.
Yeah. What's that? Can you talk me through the method?
For sure. So 7 disciplines, 21 days.
Okay, yep.
And the 7 disciplines are medical, psychology, energetic, somatic, naturopathy, nutrition, and movement.
Which you already just mentioned. Yeah,
exactly,
right.
Yeah, so we pack all of that in there, not because we want to overwhelm people. We do it in such a way that's strategically designed to feel so natural.
Yep.
Like I've just entered into the version of myself that is taking care of her nutrition, that is using the right supplementations. We do some IV treatments to make sure we pack in the vitamins and the goodness that maybe your body hasn't gotten because of all the drinking or whatever it might be, the patterns that you're in. We're moving your body because your personal trainer comes in with you and says, let's go for a jog, or we've got some equipment in the villa, or we go to the local gym and we do the work there. And then you might have your psychologist come in, and then they might do some neurofeedback with you to rewire the brain for better concentration or less dysregulation emotionally. And then they might talk about, okay, let's map out the memories you want to work on that we want to process for your trauma. In the afternoon, your somatic healer comes in and they talk to you about the body. And they might put you on the massage table and help you and support you in accessing different parts of your body. And you might wrap up with a massage, and your private chef comes in, as they do for lunch and dinner, and prepare you a beautiful meal. And they might even show you how to make your own food, so that when you go home, you've got those skills. At night, you grab your iPad, and we've got a beautiful client portal, all these practice libraries that you can tap into meditations and different practices and between session activities that we put in there. Pop your headphones in, grab your iPad and do some soothing activities. And off you go to bed, and we start the next day, and you might have a slightly different schedule, but we're working with you in a way that feels like a beautiful rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds amazing, right? But also just like having that amount of time dedicated to yourself where you don't have any distraction from the outside world and you can focus on you in whatever that might be. And how often do you get the opportunity to take a step back and focus on you? Like if I think about, when I first started wanting to create change in my life, I ended up going on a retreat, and it was like, I think it was 7 days or something along those lines. And it was more a health retreat as well, but there they had NLP, they had sound, they had nutrition, like everything was kind of catered for. And that was like really an eye-opener for me, and just how much like I changed within that 7 days, right? And so I love anything, where you get to go away and you change up your environment, because then you can just be fully immersed into the experience as well, rather than like, oh, who do I need to see today, or what do I need to do, or anything along those lines as well. So yeah.
When you think about neuroplasticity, it demands that. It demands maybe a change up of routine, a change up of patterns. And what's the easiest way to do that? To change location for a little bit. Yeah. And when you do that, your brain kind of gets into, where am I? What am I doing? And now you're being fed all these incredible meals, and you're engaging in all these different patterns. The neurons are firing up in all these amazing ways, and you're doing it for 21 to 28 days. So it's already started to form different patterns. Because you're not in the old environment, the old neural pathways are starting to wither away a little bit. They're getting a little bit weaker. The new environment is bolstering up all this new neural pathways for all the goodness, all the things that you want to adopt, and change is possible. So yeah, I really believe that change is sometimes really required for the brain to keep up with what you want for your life.
For someone that is looking to create change in their life, what would be the top say 3 to 4 things that they can focus on now that's within their control, that they can see some movement.
Yeah, it depends on the person and what they might be presenting with, because every plan has to be incredibly unique and bespoke for them. But for, let's say, someone is listening now and they might be struggling with their mental health, they may have put it off for a very long time. I say step 1 is acknowledge it. Own it, label it, call it out, whatever you need to do. Don't brush it off anymore, because the more you do, the more it grows. Just because you can push it, numb it, doesn't mean that it goes away. It's just there and it's controlling you in ways that you're not consciously aware of. So label it, own it. Step 2, don't have to do this on your own. Find your community, find your support people. Whether it's as intensive as a support like ours, where you get to leave all of it to us and we support you, or whether it's speaking to a friend or going to your GP and getting a referral for a therapist, that could be a really healthy starting point. The second thing is, I would encourage you to dabble with some holistic modalities, and try to experiment with what it would be like to, go to a naturopath and go to an energetic healer if you have any spiritual beliefs, or play with what your beliefs are and what you want to experiment with, and dabble in methods that are more natural, more alternative, as we call them in Australia, because they are beautiful and they are necessary as part of our model of change, not just the medical model.
Yep.
Don't feel defeated if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, it took me 4 therapists before I found my therapist.
Yeah.
It took me experimenting with different things until I went, oh, that worked. A lot of the time we do that and we go, oh, no, it doesn't work. So we might write off psychology. I've had many clients who come to me like, I've done this before. And it's sad to hear that, because they've had some experiences and they may have felt that they need to write it off. But keep trying, keep going. It's like dating. You're not going to try. You're not going to go on one bad date and go, well, I guess I'm never going to have a relationship.
Yeah.
We're going to have to keep going and keep trying. But that requires a level of tolerance. So also take care of yourself.
And I think also get out of your head at the same time, because anytime that you go to seek help or you want to create change, it is, you need to be open for it. Because if you go, you're attached to the outcome, then you might go in with a preconceived idea on what you're going to get out of it. However, you need to be open to all of the experiences at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that the multitude of experiences, there's no good or bad. They're just experiences, and you get to feel the next experience that comes from that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get caught up in, is it right? Is it wrong? Did I do well? Did I not do well? Did I pick the right therapist? Did I not? It's like sometimes you just have to choose.
Yeah.
And with that choice, you make a life out of that, and then you make the next choice and the next choice. There's no right or wrong. There's literally, you can make a life out of any choice that you decide, whether it's a therapist or a modality or a treatment center. But just make a choice. It's in not making a choice that people actually end up suffering more.
I feel like we've covered off a lot of things today, which I've absolutely loved our conversation.
Me too.
Was there any question that you were hoping I would ask, or any topic that you were hoping we would cover off today that we haven't touched on that you would love to?
That's a very good question. I think the stigma around mental health, because I think that's what stops people for getting to know the services around them, the supports around them. It's that we've normalized physical health stuff so much, but we're still, to this day and age, we're still not talking about mental health as something that is a normal part of life. That we can talk about struggling, and then we can talk about our mental health not being okay, and that people won't just look at us and be alarmed, just like, oh, I thought you were successful. So it's this idea of, I can be really successful and I can still be struggling with my mental health. Whereas now it's like, if you're struggling with your mental health, then you also must not be doing really well in life. That's not the truth of it. We need to normalize people asking for help.
Yeah.
And people openly having conversations like this, not only in podcast rooms, but, you know, out in the open, in communities, at work, everywhere, especially for my athletes. Non-existent conversation. It's alarming within the sports community and the athlete community how that's a conversation that's almost not allowed. And we sometimes teach some of our athletes breath work, and it's like the most incredible thing, a meditation. And that level of access to supports to some of our athletes it's really sad, actually.
Yeah. It reminds me of a conversation that I've had with one of my guests on here, Cooper, and he talks about not necessarily mental health but mental fitness, where we look after, as you said, like our physical health, and it's also we look after our mental health as well. So how can we actually take care of that every single day and recognize when we do things that might not necessarily be healthy for us, like what happens before that. So say, for example, you mentioned vice before about, you know, alcohol or things along those lines. That's still a part of mental health. Like if you feel like a coping mechanism is drinking, that's mental health.
Yeah.
And I don't think people actually make the connection there as well, because you're still dissociating from the feeling of whatever is going on with you to then go to your phone, drink, or whatever else is your chosen thing there as well. And I think it's recognizing that there's a correlation there as well.
Yeah. And that requires a lot of education and you know, for us to publicly speak about these things openly. And when people do, the other person goes, well, I do that. I didn't really. Okay, I wonder what I'm doing it for. What's the hidden reason that I'm drinking so much? And in fact, it keeps increasing. So conversations like this pave the way for everyday people to grab that knowledge and go, I get that now, I understand that. And then they can do something with it.
Yeah. I appreciate everything that you've shared today, both from your vulnerability and your personal story, and also the change that you're creating and creating spaces for people to come and, you know, work on themselves so then they can create a better life for themselves and their families as well. So I feel like the work that you're doing, I just absolutely love. So thank you for sharing today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. And you as a host, I feel like it takes a certain level of vulnerability to bring out vulnerability. So thank you for creating safety.